We're live. Welcome back to DC Decoded, where we're breaking down what happens when artificial intelligence meets the nation's capital. We are the DC chapter of the GenAI Collective, which is a national, at this point, international nonprofit that seeks to bring together AI practitioners, experts, anybody that's interested in AI in whatever region that chapter is in. I am Sam Lee. I am the creative director of DC Decoded and the DC chapter. And in addition to these Substack Lives, this is Substack Live number 2, we also have a podcast that goes up every other Wednesday. This Wednesday will be our new podcast episode that will be in the cybersecurity field. And we're also going to start putting out news roundups, which, based on the timing of this live, should have already gone out if I did my if I did my responsibilities correctly. So that will just be a weekly news roundup every Tuesday, covering what's happening with AI in DC, not just in policy land, but also business, both big business, startups, culture, anything else that we can think of. But these Substack Lives, guys, these are a real treat because we get to recap the amazing actual events that we hold on an increasingly consistent basis. And if people can't catch it during this live, we'll also be updating it afterwards and uploading it to Substack. That intro gets longer every time, which is good because that means we have things to talk about. But enough about me and the content. Let's introduce our co-host. We'll start with Catherine. Catherine, you want to give a quick introduction and your affiliation with the chapter?
Yes, my affiliation. I am the DC chapter lead, so I started the chapter back in October, and I've been running it ever since, growing the team. Yeah, we've had a unprecedented month of 2 events under our belt, I think already, and next week we'll have our 3rd event of the month. So very excited about how we've grown since
Awesome.
October.
Yes. And Anna, would you like to introduce yourself as
For
well?
sure. Hello again. This is my second Substack Live, so I'm happy to be here. I am the
You did well
operations.
enough on your first one that we
There you go.
allowed you back on this.
Perfect. Well, here's my reintroduction. I am the operations lead with the Gen AI Collective DC chapter. I'm happy to be working alongside both Catherine and Sam, and we have quite a few other team members that are great coworkers of ours. But I work primarily on event operations, so you'll typically see me at majority of events. And yeah, we've kind of just hit the ground running. I started back in January, and we've had over 5 events now, and this is going to be our 6th event coming up next week. Like Heather said, it's going to be our 3rd event this month. We've had over 700 plus attendees over the span of the past 4 months. So it's definitely a growing chapter. Definitely a real need and presence for the AI space in DC. So I'm happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. Let's get into it. So, AI Power Hour, Gen I Collective X Prefect. Walk us through what this is, where was it held, when was it held, and how did this come together? Catherine, why don't we start with you?
Oh, okay. I get the logistics. Yeah, so basically this was held in a corporate office space in Foggy Bottom. The company's Prefect and our point of contact is Jeff. And we love Jeff because basically how it went was I came up to him at a data collective event. There's a variety of tech focused communities in DC, and I attended an event, and I basically ambushed him and said, "Hey, is it possible for me to host a Gen AI collective event here?" And he was like, "Sure, just connect with me on LinkedIn and we'll talk." And basically, it was like super simple. He just basically helped us choose the date and gave us the beautiful rooftop space where there's a indoor section and then also an outdoor section. Um, they supported with food and beverages for the event, so it was really really turnkey. All thanks to Jeff and Amy who supported. So yeah, it came about through that connection, and I'm hoping that we can make it a more reoccurring partnership with Prefect.
Yes, shout out Jeff and good job, Catherine, with ambushing him. This was last Thursday, April 3rd, 5 to 7 p.m. Anna, do you want to walk us through more of the event description and also where people can find this event and future events on what
For
platform?
sure. Yeah, no problem. So like Sam said, it was last Wednesday.
Thursday,
It was
right? I think
wait,
last
Thursday, yeah.
Thursday,
Yeah.
progress.
Whoa, wait.
Whoops,
Yes,
whoa.
yes.
Thursday, April 3rd. It was from 5 to 7. And yeah, it was great. We had about 30 to 40 attendees. It was for AI policy experts, tech advisors, founders, researchers. We even had some mentors in the educational space. And yeah, a big shout out to the Prefect team. They were super helpful in terms of coordinating. For this event, and like many past events, our goal is to have very curated discussions around AI, whether that be future AI adjustments or AI alignment in particular. And so it was just kind of an intimate night where we could kind of form into small group discussions. And I think it's definitely, every event is different and there's trial and error. And so this event, we tried to do kind of like speed round discussions. And so we tried to rotate people. And so it's a little bit difficult when RSVPs fluctuate and people come in at different times. And with this particular event, everyone actually had to leave the venue space by 7. So we had to kind of start pushing people out the door between 6:30 and 6:45. Every attendee was great. We were able to clear everybody out in time and give the space back to the prefect office. But that being said, it was cool to be in curated discussions. We had 5 questions in particular that explore different topics of AI, and we tried to do those in groups of like anywhere between like 5 to 8 people, and we had 10-minute discussions, and we kind of just self figured it out just from an operational
Yeah.
perspective. So we had timers on our phones. We make it work. So we did that, and we rotated everybody 3 times. So that was
And
kind of the logistics.
and where were people signing up for this event, or where
Right.
generally can they find our events?
They can find our events all on Luma. Everything is there. Sometimes we even post on LinkedIn. For the upcoming AI Insiders, I posted on LinkedIn just about a week ago. And so a lot of them can be found through those outlets. We also have the DC Decoded, brand new LinkedIn. Shout out to Sam for helping create that. Everybody go like and follow the page.
Yes, another LinkedIn for you all to follow,
Yes,
to another
exactly.
Substack for you all to subscribe to.
So we have quite a variety of different media outlets that they can find
Awesome.
these events.
Let's get into the actual content of what was discussed based on what you two heard and also participated in. What were the key points that people were making? What were people interested in talking about related to the discussion topics that you guys covered?
I can start. So every group was different, but I thought 2 of my biggest takeaways was kind of the intersectionality between AI and healthcare, and kind of in terms of taking yourself out of a technical perspective, and again with like a humanistic approach to AI and alignment, and kind of looking at the positive sides of what AI can do. There's clear need for it in the healthcare space, and having good and reliable and accurate data that hospitals can use to function off of and to help with their patients. That was a very interesting topic that we covered. And also, there was a lady in one of my groups, and she was a teacher, and she was kind of talking about the educational approach to AI. And I spoke about this briefly on our last Substack Live, but it's really important to start educating younger generations about like the dependencies that we have on AI at this point, and to kind of remind the younger generations to think critically and independently from various AI platforms or software. And it was funny to hear kind of her approach and what it was like in the classroom. It sounds like a lot of students are using ChatGPT to do all of their assignments and whatnot. So it's definitely a little bit of a struggle. And I think the onus is on us as people that are curious and also interested in the space to educate younger people.
Yeah, Catherine, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, on the education point, unrelated to the conversations I had, but a little fun fact about me, I taught English in Korea in 2023, and I saw my students using ChatGPT in the
What did you
classroom.
do when they were using it? How did you approach that?
Yeah, so So basically, like the space that I allowed them to use technology was a project space. So I encourage them to iterate ideas and generate ideas and brainstorm using those tools, but I also know that they were probably also using it as a translator. So really like it's hard to enforce. I mean, it's already hard to explain um good technology uses in the classroom to a group of 30 to 40 boys. Like I was teaching at an all boys high school, so that a lot of them mentally checked out, but I'm
Tough
being for
crowd.
real. I'm being so for real. But actually, interestingly, I mean, yeah, it's interesting that I have this like explicit experience, but one of my club classes that I taught, I was facilitating a debate, and the question of the debate was, should AI be used at school? And I separated them into two groups, the yays and the nays, and then I had them think critically through what their arguments were. What's your opening remarks? What are two or three arguments that you have, your core statements, and then what's a counter argument that you anticipate from the other team? Little did I know that the Korean education system, okay, we're going off on a tangent here.
Yeah.
We're listening. We love it.
Prioritizes like rote memorization, especially in English learning, right?
Mhm.
So I first wanted to challenge them to think critically through like making an argument in their own language, like in Korean. And they kind of struggled with that too. So this actually flows nicely back into the conversations that I had in my group, which is dependency. And I think is what Anna was talking about in her group around viable uses of AI in the school and in our work. And something that we talked about in our group was how one of the people was prototyping a new technology, right? Was coding it, and instead of, getting like developers to join his team, he just got AI tools to help him iterate faster and faster. And I asked
Yeah.
him, has this distorted your sense of time around how much effort things should take and how long things should take? And it was a resounding yes. Like, this is changing our expectations around ourselves and what we can accomplish. And I think to an end that is hard to predict. It's hard to predict how productive we can be with AI and how productive we should be. Because if it's as simple as writing an email and you're outsourcing writing an email to ChatGPT, not to point fingers, but I I do my fair share of that, at least to get the first draft out, right? If I have a lot,
Also guilty of that. So
we all are. Come
not
on.
proud of it, but it's true.
Don't worry, everyone who's listening in and will watch this, it was made by me. It was made with love, the email that I sent. But but
I
really, like, it's becoming sort of a crutch that people go to as the first thing that they do when they have an idea or working on something. And with that, it's like, what is left for us to do? Like, where do we have unique value as people, to contribute to our work and be a part of it? And I think the answer is probably creativity and having the the idea to begin with, right? Like, you can't like we can't create something out of nothing if we don't have an idea. And
Mhm.
using AI as a tool to help supplement and accelerate the pace of innovation and go to market on ideas is great, but again, the challenge is to what end and how much should we rely on it.
Yeah, I'm hearing the common themes of like biotech, education, future of work come up in this specific event. Have these been recurring themes based on the past events we've held this year, or are these somewhat different from previous events? I'm just curious if these have just been like repeat topics that you guys have been hearing from people.
Yes.
I think our
100%.
questions are different from like our AI soirees. We created a new list of questions. That being said, I think a lot of the main things come up in many of these discussions because they are important.
Yeah.
Codependency on AI is huge. And I've talked about that last week. I talked about that in the soirees. I've talked about that at little happy hours. I mean, it it is so important to remind ourselves to be aware of these codependencies. And so, and not only from a creativity lens of kind of setting yourself aside from the AI, but I think it's also critical thinking skills. I
Yeah.
think, for example, an email is such a simple example, but I think it really depicts kind of just the effect that AI has just on our workload, on our thinking abilities. Is if I say AI draft an introductory email for me, it regurgitates me an email prompt, but it's not good. And I know it's not good because I know how to write a good email. And why do I know how to write a good email? Well, because I didn't have access to ChatGPT when I was in high school. So I actually had to think of the grammar, the syntax, the things that go into the English language that
Yeah.
that make a good and clear and concise prompt. And so for that, I am lucky, and for that, I am aware. And so, even if I have ChatGPT draft me an email, I still end up writing. It takes me 30 minutes to just basically write my own email.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
counterintuitive. But what's a little bit scary and alarming, as we can see from people that work actually in the educational space in particular, is that AI is here and people are relying on it. Not only are people relying on it, but when you are relying on it from a young age, and the youngest childhood years of growth and development and developing these critical thinking skills, if you're not doing that and you're not pushing your students to do that, your children to do that, it becomes a very tense topic. And so I think
Yeah.
that's why part of it is recurring.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I think both of you have this sentiment of like you acknowledge that AI is here in many different ways and has been integrated into various facets of our life. Like I think you both would accept that, but you're also bringing up this tone of I wouldn't say alarm. I don't think we're alarming anybody, or I don't also think we're like breaking any new ground, but I think you're bringing up valid concerns about critical thinking, about education, about what this means for us as working professionals, but then the younger generations. I'm curious, was that also the sentiment at this event, at this happy hour, which might be ironically named based on your answer? But is that how other people are feeling, or is it a different vibe? Like, what? How are people in DC feeling about all of these AI advancements?
Yeah. Well, for my group, I think there's a sense of curiosity and excitement around how we can leverage these tools to magnify our impact. So like I I don't want to like put people into separate buckets, but I would say like the policy and more theoretical people versus the technical people have maybe different sentiments around it. A lot of the technical people that I talked to were just purely amazed and excited. Of course, like they had their concerns about things, but like they have a totally different vantage point than someone maybe in the policy space. So, and of course, like this is not right. This is not the case for everyone. Everyone's somewhere on the spectrum of fear and alarm and excitement and curiosity. But I found that in my groups that were more technical leaning, that they had more of a bias towards openness and experimentation with it. And perhaps like maybe in other groups, like with the soirees that we've had before, the groups were blended between people who thought of it kind of as a cautionary tale, and then other people who wanted to shout out to Wolf. I mean, like he's a strong advocate of like an AI first, AI forward kind of workplace.
Yes, his
So
book AI Driven is out now at all
wait,
fine
actually,
bookstores and
you know,
Amazon.
let's
I
give
also have
PR.
Wolf a shout
Wolf
out.
Wolf,
AI Driven.
Woo-hoo!
There
we
we
have your book
go.
here.
So cool.
He was also on our podcast recently, so check out that episode too.
Yeah. So I'd say like, and this is why like just Why it's so important to have these type of events so that we can bring these different perspectives to the table
Yeah.
and give them a space to express that.
Anna, want to add anything
Yeah,
there?
I would definitely agree. I think that there's people all along the spectrum. That's a really good question because I think for me going forward, I need to pay more attention to like which people and which different sectors do have, because I have said this before, and I've said that I've been super surprised by just getting into like I'm definitely an AI curious person and getting familiar with people that work in the field. There's definitely a pessimistic tone. That being
Mm,
said, somebody like me that is not, a product manager or somebody that's worked in software for 30 years, I'm excited. I'm curious. I want to know how we can learn how to cope with these AI capabilities and coexist with them and be able to function together. But I also thought this was also another very interesting point that was brought up in my group, and that kind of just to take it a step back and to not give AI the credit it deserves because it's so great, it's so amazing, there's so much development. My group was talking about that we had a question about alignment, and I've said this before, um, previously, just kind of what the scope is on human alignment with AI, and they some person an individual in my group brought up the fact that like you ask AI to depict a person for you and it's like gives you a white male, you know what I mean? So it also just reflects kind of the inequalities and misrepresentation and underrepresentation that have existed in our society for so long, that continue to exist, and what AI is supposed to be this wonderful thing, but here we are and we see it in action and it's not doing that. So there's also a serious growth factor in this, and room for improvement, and room where we can kind of get from a social perspective to break this chain of negative inequalities. And so that was
yeah,
something interesting.
that's been a theme I have seen come up as well. And I think that it really just depends on what AI tool you're talking about and literally like what month you're talking about. Because I
Yeah.
think whatever
Mhm.
AI tool you're using in like January 2025, I'm sure has like vastly improved even a few months now. So I'm not
Mhm.
pushing back against what you're saying, Anna, but I also think that is why I hope, and maybe this is jumping ahead to takeaways at the end, but I hope for future events, like we can get even more specific, get to brass tactics, as Catherine has said before, of just like what AI tool are you talking about? Like what specific biases are you talking about? Because
Mhm.
biases in AI algorithmic systems, I feel like they've existed for quite a while now, and I think a lot of them have been remedied. I'm not saying that like there isn't a long way to go, but Anna, that's like a point that I hope comes
Yeah,
up every time so we can keep skewering it because
for sure.
I personally like I feel like I understand like there's bias in AI, but like where are we, like who are the
Mhm.
players, both big and
Uh-huh.
small, that are like making the important steps forward so like those
Yeah.
things don't happen. So yeah,
Mhm.
definitely a point to like keep bringing up among us, but then also
Yeah.
making sure that we're inviting people who can speak to that both on the podcast but also events. Moving to funny stories, like any events, there are hopefully some humorous moments. And I unfortunately was not able to come to this one, so maybe I missed out. But Catherine, Anna, any funny moments to share with the audience?
I think when Anna was introducing the event, I think she gave the impression that everything was like super seamless and smooth, but that's not exactly
Uh,
how. And you know what? Everyone had
it
a great
never is.
time. Let's start there. Everyone left with a smile on their face and more LinkedIn connections. That's all we can ask for. That's all we can hope for. Um, that said, I think that there were some miscalculations on my part about how do we get people to talk to everyone in the room. And I realized, wait, that's actually kind of complicated, because we had people come in and choose a random number, but then we quickly realized that some people were choosing like like the 1s and 2s were all gone, but then the 5s, 6s, 7s, and 8s were all there. We're like, wait, we need to make it even between the odd and even numbers, and then that's how we're gonna break them into the groups because they all have a number now. And it was
in the people's defense. So let me just say, from an operations perspective, it was a little bit of a logistical nightmare because we tried to create a game that was centered around a specific amount of people. And again, it's hard to get that, especially when people are coming in late. Like me, metro delays. I rolled in at 5:15. I tried to get there at 5. And so there's already, half the room has like 10 people already. So now I'm handing out numbers, but I'm not consciously thinking about what I'm handing out because I'm like, in my head, everyone's going to show up, so everyone's going to get a number, and I know that the math is right on the numbers at least, so it'll be fine. But it obviously didn't work that way, and thank gosh for Catherine because she is quick on her feet and quick thinking. And so we kind of improv'd, and she's like, okay, what numbers do we have? What numbers do we need? And so we kind of just had to improv, and we realized a lot of people had a lot of odd numbers. So we kind of centered around there and tried to group people in odd and even number groups, and then
well, I mean, that was one thing. The next thing
right.
was
No, yeah.
The next thing was okay, they're in groups. All right, what happens when they need to change groups? And that was kind of like, wait a minute, how are they going to do that? Because it's a great idea in theory, but in practice, how am I supposed to make sure that every group composition is unique each time?
Yeah.
That's hard. I would have had to have calculated in advance the exact route that they have to take from table to table in order to and that's not possible. So I was like, okay, half of you are rotating and half of you are staying. And then the other half will rotate the other way. But then people didn't really listen to me and they just kind of did what they wanted to do. And that's okay. Like, it's.
We listen and we don't judge.
Yeah, guys, this caused Catherine to like lose years of her life, hours of sleep because you don't follow her instructions.
It's okay. It's okay. You guys are there to connect, network, learn. I'm there to make sure that it goes well. We're there to make sure that it goes smoothly. But honestly, like I feel that the less friction that we have in everything that we do, and even like how we feel about the event, will radiate out. So
Yeah,
if the host is stressed, everyone's gonna be like, oh my god, like what's happening? Are we gonna be okay?
Yeah.
But if we just kind of roll with it and make light of it and hey, we're just going to figure this out, just sit down, then we sorted it out. The interesting thing about this space was that there was an outdoor section and then an indoor section, so everyone was seated, but none of the indoor people were going outside, and maybe they came once.
Oh, thank you for the like. We appreciate it. It's our first like. It's our first like.
That was our goal.
That was I wasn't on the last one, but yeah, we were like rotating around, but I was like, they can handle it. They're adults,
Yeah,
definitely difficult to incorporate the inside and outside perspective.
Yes,
but we made it work.
Lovely. Anna, any other stories you can think of? But I feel like that was a pretty good.
I mean,
that was pretty good content right there.
That's the gist of it. So
yeah. Let's wrap up here with one thing that you want to take from this event for our next event, and then one thing you're happy to like leave in this event. So it could be anything. It could be how you planned it. It could be what was discussed. Anything that happened after the event, but one thing for each category. Catherine, let's start with you. Yes, you.
I can start if you don't want to start.
Well, shoot, now I have to think about it. It's just one thing. I have a way with making one thing like 3 things, maybe
That's
even 4.
That's why I wanted to start with you, so you didn't have enough time to think.
Okay. No more random numbers.
True.
That's what I'm taking. That's what I'm taking out.
You're leaving. Yeah, you're leaving in the past.
No more random numbers. We're gonna find another way. What I'm going to keep is having a space where people can feel like they can contribute and participate fully. And I think that we accomplish that every time. So
Yeah, I agree.
For me, I think aside from the numbers, I think our questions in particular, I thought we had very, in theory, our questions wanted to depict a lot of the challenges in AI right now, but they were such big concept ideas that it was very difficult to have a meaningful conversation in a short period of time. So, really trying to focus on improving our questions and making them tailored to each group and interests, and making sure that we give people the space and ability to really dive into some of the major challenges we're seeing right now, whether that be regulation, whether that be alignment, um, you know, all of it. Really trying to create a space where we can have, timely and important based discussions. Something that I am taking with me and I want to keep in the events is, again, yeah, creating a safe, warm, comfortable space for people to come. I really want to make sure people get the opportunity to come to these events. And I think that there's a little bit of confusion from the attendees' perspective, is that we are having events so often, and we're trying to do this 2 to 3 times a month, that we want to get all of the people following us involved in these discussions and these events.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy that we've been able to kind of increase viewership and attendees rate, but really making sure that we're kind of clear on that. Depending on the event, it can be tailored for different audiences. And so if you're not
Yeah.
RSVP'd into some events, it's not the end of the world. Don't take it personal. We will
There will
try
be
to
more
get you.
events.
There will be more
Yeah.
events, and we will try to get you in.
Sooner than you think. Sooner than you
And so,
think.
so making sure that that's being talked about and addressed is important.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I agree. I also think on Anna's point about like a comfortable space, comfortable with being challenged. Like it's not just a sense of like
mhm.
comfort with your
Not
beliefs going
physically,
in.
but yeah,
Yes, not
emotionally.
like
Of
there
course
will
not
be no
physically.
duels.
I would
There
hope
will be
not.
no duels.
Yeah.
To clarify for those people out there. But yeah, like comfortable being challenged with your views, and like that's one of the best ways to learn. I love that I like disagreed when I helped host the soiree. I disagreed on several points, and it was helpful to like have back and forth with people. So that's something that I think we'll try to emphasize more as well, because again, that's just I think a really great way to learn is just being comfortable with like being challenged and also challenging.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, that was the recap of the latest Gen AI DC event. The title was AI Power Hour Gen AI Collective X Prefect. Be sure to subscribe, leave a rating or review wherever you are listening or watching this recap. And the links to upcoming Gen AI events will be in the show description. Thank you to, I assume it's Alessandro who gave us the likes. We are onwards and upwards from our first like, and I'm sorry if it was one of the other two viewers. But until the next recap, we will see you then. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you soon at an event on Substack, anywhere in the DC area. But yeah, be on the lookout for whatever is our next content based on when I post this. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.